Coming up this week on Talk with Audrey, Dr. Jason Luke, the director of the Cancer Immunotherapeutic Center at the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center, and Kylie, LiPira, CEO of the Melanoma Research Foundation, join me. We're going to talk about a first-of-its-kind dual immunotherapy treatment for advanced melanoma patients. Dr. Randall Morgan, a health disparities expert and president and CEO of the Cobb Institute, and Ramona Burris, director of diversity and inclusion and clinical trials at Jansen, talk about why it's vital for all populations of people to be included when researching. DeVol, president and CEO of Heartland Forward, joins me, and we talk about innovations happening between the coast and why it's important for the rest of the country. It's all coming up this week on Talk with Audrey. Insightful, intelligent, and inspiring conversations and information to help you improve the quality of your life. It's all about the business of living, and I'll be right back after this. You're watching Talk with Audrey. Welcome back. Skin cancer remains the most common cancer in the United States despite preventative sun care measures like sunscreen use and UV protective clothing. Fortunately, there are scientific advances that have helped to bring hope to patients facing advanced melanoma. My guests today are Dr. Jason Luke, director of the Cancer Immunotherapeutic Center at the UPMC Hillman Cancer Center, and Kylie, LiPira, CEO of the Melanoma Research Foundation. And we're going to talk about a first-of-its-kind dual immunotherapy treatment for advanced melanoma patients. Welcome to both of you.
Well, thanks so much for having us.
So let's first talk about melanoma. Dr. Luke, what's the risk and who's at risk?
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. So again, Jason Luke, I'm a medical doctor who takes care of patients with melanoma, also a researcher and consultant for companies like Bristol Myers Squibb. And so when we talk about melanoma, it's commonly understood that melanoma is a form of skin cancer that can be actually quite dangerous. So we know that melanoma and other skin cancers are predominantly caused by sun exposure, the radiation that comes from the sun. So about 70,000 people per year are diagnosed with melanoma, but the vast majority of them can be cured with a simple procedure to remove the melanoma from the skin. Unfortunately, about 8,000 to 10,000 people per year in the United States will actually have the melanoma spread in the body and develop what's called metastatic melanoma. And in that scenario, then we need to think about how to try to control the melanoma with medicines. And in that regard, we've had a major improvement in our understanding of the immunology that regulates our body's response to cancer over the past 10 to 15 years, such that the use of immune therapies has actually become the sort of bedrock treatment approach for most patients with melanoma. And it's in that context then that we have the development of this new dual immunotherapy Opdualag that'll be very exciting to discuss.
Well, tell us more about Opdualag and how it might help people with advanced melanoma.
Yeah, so building on sort of fundamental science understanding that we now know that most patients with melanoma actually have mounted an immune response against the cancer. And what I mean by that is literally if you cut the cancer out, you could find immune cells there. But obviously then they haven't actually done their job and killed the cancer. So why is that? Well, it turns out there are normal proteins in the body that the cancer can kind of get turned on in an unusual way that can limit the immune cells from killing the cancer. And we call these checkpoint proteins. So Opdualag, as a dual immunotherapy, brings together two medicines that can block these proteins and release the immune system. And the proteins have names like PD-1 and LAG-3, which aren't so important to remember, but the general concept is that the medicine that we give can release the immune cells that have already gone after the cancer, but been put in sort of a suspended animation. And in a clinical trial, we observed that Opdualag more than doubled the amount of time that we could control cancer for the average patient in the trial. And we know that some patients can even have more outstanding long-term control of cancer. Again, this is all despite the fact that it has spread in the body. Now, no cancer treatment has no side effects, and it's very important that any patient and their caregivers discuss all the available options, the pros and cons with their treatment team so they can really make the best decision for them.
And so it manages the cancer, treats the cancer, but it's not a cure.
Yeah, we like to be very cautious about using certain terms when we're talking about managing cancer. I can tell you in my practice, I have patients who have gotten immunotherapy who are doing very well out many years after they got the treatment. But we try not to talk about cure in so much because we don't want to set expectations in an abnormal way. We're very excited about these treatments, and the potential does exist that some patients may be able to get their cancer under control for an undefined period of time. But it's a little bit of a wait and see, and we have to treat each patient as an individual and do what's best for them depending on how the treatment goes.
Understood. So this is an important advancement for patients. Kylie, talk about the Melanoma Research Foundation, the work that you do, and what you hear from patients with advanced melanoma.
Absolutely. Well, Audrey, thank you for having us on, especially during Melanoma Awareness Month, which is such a critical time to create awareness about melanoma and ways that people can prevent it. It is one of those cancers that can be prevented in many cases, and we can't say that a lot about other cancers. So that's really important. Here at the Melanoma Research Foundation, we have a campaign this month, which is called #GetNaked, which encourages people to check their own skin and see a board-certified dermatologist for their annual skin exam. So the MRF, which we're known by, is a national nonprofit organization that's dedicated to accelerating medical research while educating to and advocating for the melanoma community. And we are supported by companies like BMS and many others who support our mission. So when we hear of new approved treatments that are available for our patient community, we're really excited. Many people don't know, but there are 1.3 million Americans living with melanoma right now, and the diagnosis rates are going up. We know that many people did not get their skin checked because of COVID. They didn't want to go into a doctor's office, and they may have missed their skin exam because of it. And with some global data that the MRF recently acquired, we learned that there are probably 33,000 missed melanomas across the United States. And that's a big number, especially when we're talking about a cancer that is preventable and very curable if caught early. For those patients that see Dr. Luke, this new treatment option brings about a lot of hope. You know, a lot of people are not responding to the approved treatments available. So to have the potential for a new treatment is really exciting for the melanoma community who are living with advanced melanoma.
And it's important for people to protect themselves. We talk about the rise of skin cancer, even though people are using sunscreen and UV protected clothing, because summer's right around the corner and there are people who are going to be out there baking in the sun and thinking nothing of it. Dr. Luke, can you sound the alarm?
Yeah, absolutely. So as Kylie talked about, so the first thing in melanoma is prevention. And the times have really changed from the old days with the, white sunblock on the nose. Sunscreen's cool now. And so, finding the one that works for you and applying it regularly is really the key. So we need to apply sunscreen about once an hour, especially when we're out in a place that's hot or like around the beach. And I personally really like the sun protective clothing. So I like the UV protective shirts and this kind of thing. So there are many different ways that people can go about protecting themselves. And really it's just remembering it before you go out. And I'll put a particular plug in for little children. So little kids in the family, a lot of the sun damage that is cumulative over the course of our lives happens when kids are real little. And so we should all think of this and we should all take care, but think about your family members and remind them. And you don't have to give them a hard time per se, but there are a lot of different ways to be safe in the sun now. And I would really advocate, have fun outside, but just think about it before you go.
And as always, I want to remind everyone to check with their doctor and healthcare provider and go get those checkups so that the doctor can take a look at your whole body to see what you don't see and recognize what you might not. Where can we go for more information about Abdullaag and for information about the Melanoma Research Foundation?
Absolutely. Two great questions. So in terms of the treatment that Dr. Luke was describing, you can go to Abdullaag.com to learn more about that. And again, for the Melanoma Research Foundation, please visit melanoma.org. We have a lot of great resources on our website, not only for the general public on prevention and some of the great tips that Dr. Luke shared, but also for patients going through treatment. So you can visit us at melanoma.org.
All right, everyone, be safe out there. The sun feels great, but you know, you've got to protect yourself. Thank you both for joining me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
There's more to come on Talk with Audrey. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Clinical trials are an essential component of healthcare, yet lack of diversity in clinical trials is a serious issue with significant health implications. Dr. Randall Morgan is the health disparities expert and president and CEO of the Cobb Institute, and Ramona Burris is director of diversity and inclusion and clinical trials at Jansen. We're going to talk today about why it's vital for all populations of people to be included when researching.
Thank you.
Thank you both for joining me. Let me start with you, Dr. Morgan. Why is it important to have diversity in clinical trials?
Well, a clinical trial is a research study, Audrey, and it answers specific research questions related to new medications and can also help us to learn more about a certain health condition. And we have learned over the years how important it is to have all sexes, ages, races, ethnicities, and even demographics represented in our clinical trials, because our bodies can react differently based on these factors, and including many different types of clinical trials that will show how effective and safe a medication or therapy can be for those who need it.
And as you're researching new medications to help address an issue, does that mean that medications work differently in different populations?
Yes, they do. And the more that we learn through these focused studies and clinical trials, the more we're able to have diverse clinical trials for every pharmaceutical agent that is being studied. The more we understand the differences and the reactions of these medications to different individuals.
So how do clinical trials work, and how do people find out about and get involved in clinical trials?
The most common way that people know about clinical trials is by referral, either through their primary care physician or maybe a specialist who's treating them for a particular problem. And these physicians must have some contact and knowledge of clinical trials, and they also must have confidence in the fact that the clinical trials will be safe for their patients. And as a result, patients are referred. Occasionally, they may be referred by others in their family or even by publicity for specific conditions that they themselves feel they can benefit from a clinical trial. But most people will not volunteer to be in a clinical trial without the encouragement of a trusted voice.
Ramona, what's being done to help improve diversity in clinical trials?
Yeah, thank you, Audrey, for that great question. So as Dr. Morgan mentioned, our bodies process medications differently. And so at Jansen, as we're developing medications to treat, prevent, or even cure health conditions and diseases, it's important that we include all patients. And so unfortunately, what we found is there continues to be underrepresentation, particularly when we look at patients of color in our research trials. So it really starts with partnership and going out to provide resources to eliminate some of the barriers. So partnerships with leaders like Dr. Morgan, and then creating programs like Research Includes Me, where it allows us to have a platform that we're giving information to the community to thus empower them to make those difficult and sometimes challenging healthcare decisions.
Tell us more about the Research Includes Me program.
Yeah, so it's a great program. It has a website that allows, again, the user to go in and learn more about the nuances of how the clinical trial process works, distinguishing between the different phases in clinical research, reaffirming how safety is a priority and how participants have their rights protected in the space, and actually has a search engine where folks can go in and kind of see what are some local opportunities to participate in research. But again, it gives them that information that allows that continued conversation with their primary healthcare physician or healthcare provider so that they find, the best opportunity for them.
All right, so let's talk about why some people might be hesitant to participate in clinical trials, especially if they have their own issues with the healthcare system or the medical system. How would you address that?
Well,
this conversation here is a good start, right, Dr. Morgan?
Exactly. It has to be done gradually. for any type of concern regarding clinical trials, because there is so much evidence that different people have been victimized through the years because of trials which were not conducted with the appropriate consent and with the concern for the patients or the individuals and for their outcome. And once we are able to satisfy individuals that there are many, many improvements and modifications in the clinical trial process now that protect their safety, and also they understand that they are in control and can opt in or opt out of a clinical trial at any time. This has begun to show great results and to allay many of the fears that historical evidences have affected people in the past.
Well, there was a mention earlier that your healthcare provider might also suggest a clinical trial that might be available. How important is that relationship with your healthcare provider in you possibly participating in a clinical trial?
It's absolutely key. And this is why, through our affiliation with the National Medical Association, an organization that represents the the interests of over 50,000 African American physicians, many of whom are in primary care. They are important to the diversification of clinical trials, and in fact are also at work trying to develop methods where more of their patients are able to be a part of the clinical trial process.
Dr. Morgan, what would you say to someone who's hesitant to join a clinical trial?
I would say that the clinical trial can provide information for them about themselves, that the clinical trial can provide excellent clinical care for them, and in some cases, very valuable medication that otherwise would be extremely expensive, and that they will have all of their questions answered. And they will also be able to review information from other clinical trials so that they can see how the process works.
And Ramona?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Morgan, for that. You know, I really think that it starts with having conversations like this. So Audrey, thank you for allowing us this space to talk and to speak, because it's really about partnership and collaboration and really empowering communities which are full of patients and caregivers with the information that's needed, again, via platforms such as our website, Research Includes Me, where we're really dispelling some of the misinformation that's out there. But, you know, research has a complicated history in many communities. And so the more that we can go out there and use subject matter experts such as Dr. Morgan and many other clinicians and physicians to be that sounding board of there's good science, there's good opportunity, and let's have honest conversations about how we can drive to make sure that we have the clinical research.
All right, so guys, you know, I always say informs empowered. Check out Research Includes Me for more information about clinical trials. And as always, speak with and seek counsel from your doctor or healthcare provider. My guests have been Health Disparities expert, Dr. Randall Morgan, and Ramona Burris, Director of Diversity and Inclusion and Clinical Trials at Jansen. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Audrey.
And thank you, Audrey, for having us today.
Gonna take a quick break, and I'll be right back. You're watching Talk with Audrey. 300 business and thought leaders came together in Bentonville, Arkansas for the 2022 Heartland Summit to learn from each other and take back new ideas for their cities to build resilient communities. Ross DeVol is President and CEO, Heartland Forward, and he joins me now to talk about innovations happening between the coast and why it's important for the rest of the country. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Audrey, for having me today.
It's my absolute pleasure. So talk with us about Heartland Forward.
So Heartland Forward is an economic think and do tank that's trying to improve economic performance in the center of the country. We're trying to foster job creation that provides economic opportunity for people in the center of the country.
And the summit is a really important component of that by getting everyone together to talk about those issues. Tell us about the summit and some of the challenges that the region is facing.
So the summit is our major convening, and we try to bring people together to address some of the challenges and ultimately turn them into opportunities to help the Heartland achieve greater economic success, to look and feel more like places on the coast that have had technology growth, that have had a number of college graduates move there and help companies grow and raise families. And there are investment opportunities here in the Heartland in young companies that start and can grow. And we need to bring more of that entrepreneurial capacity and awareness and want to grow firms here in the Heartland through increasing talent creation, bringing investment dollars from the coast and here in the center of the country to invest in these young entrepreneurs that really want to make a difference. So the summit is largely about bringing together people from the coast with the center of the country, mixing it up, sharing ideas, talking about opportunities here. You might see investment dollars flow here. You know, Steve Case from Rise of the Rest is a great example, and other venture capitalists who will be here that can ultimately lead to creating high quality jobs in the Heartland.
So people are hearing a lot about the improved quality of life in the Heartland. The cost of living is lower than either coast, right? And that means it's probably an attractive option for families. Why is the country's middle so vital?
It's vital because as a country, we cannot be as competitive unless the middle of the country plays a role. We're at a point where companies are looking at reshoring or nearshoring manufacturing activity, high valued manufacturing activity that was principally in China over the last 20 years. That model no longer works entirely in China due to geopolitical concerns and rising costs in China, to be frank. And if we're going to locate advanced manufacturing activities anywhere in the country, the Heartland has to be one of those principal locations. So for example, Intel's announcement that they're going to be building 2 new computer chip plants in a rural area outside of Columbus, Ohio, begins to make a difference. And we did a report that looked at that certainly contributed to Intel taking another look at a Heartland location. So as a country, to be competitive, the Heartland has to play a large role.
And, you know, as you think about it, if the middle of the country is not doing well, but you've got both coasts that are, then you're really missing out on opportunities to thrive, right?
You're missing out on opportunities to thrive as a country, and you get this pulling apart that people don't feel they belong to the same country, or people on the coast don't care about them, don't understand their challenges. And it can have political ramifications as well. Some of the disaffected tend to vote in extreme positions. So as a country, to remain unified, we have to have economic opportunity present not only on the coast, but in the center as well.
Indeed. What do you envision for the future of the Heartland?
We will see more places like Northwest Arkansas, like Austin, like Nashville, like Ann Arbor, like Madison, Wisconsin, like Oxford, Mississippi, like Iowa City, Iowa, that are thriving. Many of them have universities that are very engaged in promoting entrepreneurship and working with the private business sector. They have a high quality of life, quality of place, the arts, entertainment, culture, and people feeling like they have a stake in their future and that their children do as well.
All right, everyone. So if you're looking for opportunity, don't just look at the East Coast and the West Coast. Look in the middle, too.
Exactly. Meet in the middle.
And meet in the middle. Sounds good to me. Ross, where can we find more information?
You can go to Heartland Forward's website, www.heartlandforward.org.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And again, guys, you know, opportunities are everywhere, and they also exist in the Heartland. Ross DeVol, President, CEO of Heartland Forward, has been my guest. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Audrey.
And that's it for this week's show. I'm Audrey Adams. Join me here next week for more insightful, intelligent, and inspiring conversations and information. to help you improve the quality of your life. It's all about the business of living. I'll see you next week.